Ladies and gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, what the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's always great to be here as I blaze right in with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. Ladies and gentlemen, I just got back from a job interview. The manager looked at me straight in the eye and said, "This position requires a person with a great sense of responsibility." And I'm the right man for the job, I replied. During my last job, whenever something went wrong, everyone said, "I'm responsible." Government jobs and septic tanks have one thing in common. Sooner or later, the scum always rises to the top. What's the main difference between your wife and your job? After 10 long years, your job still sucks. Two married men were sitting at the bar. One of them said, "From now on, I'll have to pay for everything in cash. Somebody stole all my credit cards last month. Why don't you report your credit cards have been stolen?" The other man asked. "I was going to, but so far, the thief is spending much less money than my wife ever did." When I was a teenager, my parents sent me to a strict boarding school where they separated the boys from the girls. On the first day of class, the school dean made a speech before the entire student body. "Any man found in the ladies' dorm after dark will be fined $50. The next time he's caught, he'll be fined $100, and then $200. At this point, I raised my hand and said, "How much does it cost for a season pass?" We have a blazing hot fun show with a special guest. He is a multi-talented actor, an award-winning producer, director, TV host, and screenwriter. So please give a big warm welcome and say hello to Mike Messier.
Johnny.
Hi, Mike. Mike Messier.
It's me. How you doing, Johnny? How are you?
Hey, you. Welcome to the Amazing Rich Johnny Blaze Show. It's an honor and privilege to have you on my show, Mike.
Well, it's an honor and privilege to be here, Johnny, and I look forward to this conversation. It'll be fun.
Great. That's fantastic. Mike, give me a rundown. Let me know about the Mike Messier story. How did you get started in entertainment and where you're from? Tell me all about that, Mike.
I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, which was a suburb of the Washington, D.C. area. And basically, I took a TV production class in high school. This gentleman named Mr. Harvey taught this TV production class. And so I took that as an elective, which was, you know, a choice that not many people even knew existed at our school. And basically started, writing scripts in the class and so on and so forth. And I think even before that, Johnny, I had taken 2 VCRs and a boombox and taught myself how to make music videos by taking the audio output of a boombox and putting into the one VCR, the recording VCR, and then the video from the second VCR to manipulate some music videos. A very crude editing system, but that's what I had at the time. And kind of moved on in college. Me and a friend named George Lamastro made an 80-minute movie called Man and You, A Providence Love Story, which was terribly no budget. But we had a good time. It took us like a year and a half to make this 80-minute movie. And that kind of gave me the acting bug because I was the lead actor in that movie. I started acting, taking classes. In 2002, I had an audition for an HBO pilot that was called Candidate 2012. It never made the air, but I got to audition for Jay Roach, who directed the Austin Powers movies and the Meet the Parents movies. And then, a couple of years later, I had a big break when I played Sybil Shepherd's son in a film called Hard Luck that Mario Van Peebles directed in Rhode Island. Wesley Snipes was the star, but I had scenes with Sybil Shepherd, Mario Van Peebles, and Wesley Snipes that were like the 3 biggest stars of the movie. So that felt pretty good. And a couple of years later, I did up in a scene with Meryl Streep and Elizabeth Shue in a movie called Hope Springs. That was a Tommy Lee Jones, Meryl Streep romantic comedy. And I really just went down to do extra work to Connecticut, Johnny, and I ended up in a scene with Elizabeth Shue and Meryl Streep. So, I mean, that was fun. Wow. In the meantime, I've kind of put the last couple of years into writing novels. with the whole worldwide situation, as I call it, it's even harder than ever to finance a screenplay. So I decided to take my film scripts and kind of adapt them into the novel format. And I sent you and Bill a couple of copies of this one, A Distance from Avalon, When the Dying and the Dead Reunite. And then I'm really proud of this one. This is my sports novel, coming of age sports novel called Fight or Play Basketball, Every Shot Counts. And I don't know if
about those novels then exactly. What are they about? The basketball and also the Avalon. Yeah, you sent me the book. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
what they're about, these novels.
Yeah, well, A Distance from Avalon, this one, this is the first one I wrote. And this one is it's about a guy named Joe Humble is his name. And he's a school teacher. He's a 7th and 8th grade history teacher. He's going through a divorce. He has twin daughters and a son. And he's feeling very depressed, even a bit suicidal. Mm-hmm. And on Halloween night, a Friday night, at school, Joe's about 40, and he has a coworker who's a music teacher. She's very young. She's about 24. And she invites him out on a night on the town. Now, Joe, who still wants to reconcile with his wife, doesn't want this to be, he's kind of nervous because this is a young girl kind of asking him out. She clarified by saying, this is not a date, we're just hanging out. So there's a generational gap between these two. And they end up going out, and they end up at a castle. And the young lady, whose name is Shadow, says that this is the friend of a friend's house. And they're greeted by this other lovely young lady named Heartbreak, who then introduces them to the male host of the evening, which is Jean Lacroix d'Estance. And Jean Lacroix is a very enigmatic, charismatic individual. He and Joe kind of engage in a kind of a back and forth barbs, like they're kind of two lions who are kind of fighting for the same little mountain. And eventually what's revealed is that Jean Lacroix and Heartbreak aim to seduce their guests and invite them into a partner swap. And that, of course, turmoils Joe even further because, this is not his wife. And the young lady Shadow, although she's obviously attractive, but he doesn't have any claim to her. And now he's being put in with this other woman, Heartbreak. So Joe's kind of in over his head. And I won't give away much more than that, except to say it's, if you ever saw the movie Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, I tried to say, like, what happened if in that movie, some of the characters were like vampires, So that's kind of where I'm at with that one.
That sounds interesting. Sounds fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, this is fiction. Yeah.
So you're being creative on this. That's all and it sounds like it's based upon maybe it's some I don't know how you become creative exactly. How you come up with some of these ideas.
Well, it's funny, Johnny, that one was kind of based, believe it or not, on a location. Back in 2014, I was working with some new guys in the independent film world up in Rhode Island, and I had a venue in mind, this Courthouse Center for the Arts in West Kingston, Rhode Island, which is near the University of Rhode Island. But this old courthouse, which has been transformed into an arts venue, I had taught acting there one summer, so I knew about this venue, and it's just a great historic building. And I basically worked out a deal to shoot a film there over 6 days, and that film was supposed to be called Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary. And basically what happened is the lead actor had to drop out of the piece after we had started filming the movie, and I had to replace him with another actor. And basically I had to reconstruct my whole vision of Disregard the Vampire, this narrative film, into a documentary called Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary. In that documentary, which is on my Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, I discuss the challenges of trying to make an independent film with very little money, with an actor who drops out, replacing him with another actor after the movie started. And through that situation, Johnny, I basically reclaimed the piece. A friend of mine had actually jumped in as a co-writer, but he didn't really ask my permission to be a co-writer. He just started doing stuff. So I basically reclaimed the piece, I rewrote it, I retitled it, and A Distance from Avalon kind of rose from those ashes from Disregard the Vampire.
So like Avalon, but it's nothing to do with Catalina Island, though, even though it says A Distance from Avalon.
Well, there's an Avalonia a piece of land that actually broke off New England. It's kind of obscure, but if you look it up, it's a true story. That this Avalonia, kind of like an Atlantis type of thing, but Avalonia was off of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. And before either you or I was alive, this land broke off and drifted into the ocean. And so that's referenced in A Distance from Avalon when John Lacroix d'Estaing says that he has made this castle in the image of what he thinks Avalonia would be like had it survived.
Well, it sounds exciting. I'll have to definitely dive into it and read that book. That sounds very exciting.
Thank you.
You also have several other books. There's a book about low budget, how to film low budget movies, I think, for students.
Yep.
And you can tell me about that. And also one about basketball that you had.
Well, I'll talk about the basketball one first, since I have that right here. This is a Fighter Play Basketball. And I think this story, I would say, Johnny, is probably the most accessible to most audiences, because this is really about a single mom. And these are not the actors or anything attached to the movie. This is just model photographs. But this single mom, her son, then there's a old retired boxer, Sweet Sugar Brown, and Punch Pangora, who's a Slovenian boxer. And basically, this is a story about a young guy. He's raised by a single mother, no father in sight. The subtext of the whole story is that he's looking for a father figure. And the mother, his mother, his single mom, is kind of looking to help fill that void, but they haven't done it. And the kid's already 17. He turns 18 at the first chapter of the book. And he's got a college basketball scholarship, basically, in the process of achieving that. But he gets distracted by the world of pro boxing when his mom meets with these two boxers. And because the two boxers are both kind of interested in his mother, the kid, Jack Scratch is his name, decides to check out Sweet Sugar Brown's sweatbox gym. And he finds himself enamored with boxing, and he has a natural skill set for it. He's a natural. And so kind of the story is, when you're a young guy, sometimes you have too many choices if you're good at too many things. And this kid has to figure out if he's going to be distracted by this new passion for boxing, because he kind of likes the individuality of it, or if he's going to stick with the path of basketball. And so I tried to, it's not a book or a story that's, it's not about a nuclear explosion or, Will Smith has to save the universe from aliens or anything like that. This is like, I try to be a really relatable story that anybody that went through high school, which is pretty much all of us, can relate to. And there's some tension between Jack and his mother, because Jack sees a pattern that every time Jack gets close to a male figure, whether it's his basketball coach or these boxing guys, these guys tend to take an interest in his mother, because his mom's kind of attractive. So it's an interesting story. I tried to flesh out the four lead characters, and there's some other characters like the basketball coach, and I like the story a lot, and hopefully people will respond to it.
It sounds interesting. It definitely does. And how did you go about creating such a story? Is this anything with any experience that you had, or is this something that just came to your mind that you just came up with from thinking about it?
Fighter Play Basketball, just like A Distance from Avalon, was originally written as a screenplay. And back in 2012, I started writing it. And I started with the intention of writing Rocky Part 7. And I wrote about 3 pages of what I was calling Rocky 7, because this was before the Creed movies. And I actually called Sylvester Stallone's management office and told them, hey, I know you guys don't know me, and they returned my phone call, which was nice. But I said, hey, I'm starting to write this Rocky 7. If I were to finish the script, do you think Sylvester Stallone would care to read it? Would he even read it if I were to finish the script? And the management people said, do you have any money behind this? And the answer is no, I do not. So the basic gist was, well, we don't want you to waste your time. And I appreciated that because I don't want to waste my time either. So, Johnny, I went back to the computer and I opened up the final draft script, and I basically took Rocky out and I put Sweet Sugar Brown in.
Oh.
You know, I just started making changes, and because it was so early on the process, you know, literally page 3, I hadn't put so much time into this thing that it was a big sacrifice, you know what I mean? But I basically just started writing. At the time, I was in a writers group, basically screenwriters. We would meet at a cafe called Cafe Zog. We called ourselves the Writers of Wicketon, which was the street that the cafe was on. And we would compare screenplays that we all wrote. And to be honest, it was a really good screenwriters group because we kept each other sharp and we kept each other busy. And I don't know if there was competition in the group, but I mean, we were inspiring each other. You know what I mean? We had a guy in that group, Carl Dupree, had written Detroit Rock City and a couple of the Hellraiser movies. He was in our group. So we had some really good writers in that group. And, you know, I always felt like I wanted to present my best. And this story, Fighter Play Basketball, is a screenplay. It won an award from the Rhode Island International Film Festival, their Best of New England Story Screenplay Division. And it's done very well. Right now, it's a semifinalist in the Emergent Screenwriting competition, which out of your neighborhood, Los Angeles, I believe.
Wow. Interesting.
I like it as a screenplay, and the idea is just that I hope that the novel helps the screenplay actually get made into a film at some point. But I like having it as a novel because more people are apt to read a novel than a screenplay.
Great. Well, that's great. You also have one about a low budget, how to make low budget movies, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a long title for kind of a short book, but it's called Art and War of Directing Student Low and No Budget Movies, a primer for creating and being involved in independent film, TV, and web series. And basically, I had taught a class on that, like a workshop about, you know, directing short independent films for little to no money. And I put together like this 30 or 40 page class syllabus, and this is going back about 7 or 8 years, Johnny. And over the years, I've sent that document just as a PDF for free to several people, and people have always liked it. And I finally said, hey, you know, I have this, and I have some other writings about my own experiences, and I have like some bullet points, like 66 hints, and there's another 21 guidelines, and about making independent films for really like little to no money, you know, because a lot of people, even now with technology, when people can film stuff on their phones, when they think of movies, sometimes they don't realize you can do something creative really out of pocket and not spend a lot of money or any money. But you just have to kind of, you have to have the confidence and you have to try. And so with my primer there, if I can just instill some confidence, some inspiration to people to just go out and try to make their movie. They may not ever make $1 from it. They may not become a professional filmmaker, but they'll probably feel good about themselves. I mean, I'm sure you know many people who have some idea, they want to write a song, or they want to write a play, or they want to write a book, and they never do it. Well, these days, there's really no excuse because everything's at our fingertips these days. And my, you know, art and war of directing student and low and no budget films, it just tries to further empower people.
That's great. You're trying to motivate and lift people up who are discouraged, and you're giving them a great service, and that's helping them out.
Thank you.
It's not just you're making money, of course, but you're also doing something that you enjoy, and you're trying to, based upon your experiences, motivate and inspire people not to give up. It's easy to get discouraged, that's for sure.
You're right. It is. I mean, in this world, it loves to discourage people. And, you know, and for me, Johnny, I taught a class called Core Acting, which was an acting class I came up with. And I always try to empower people, you know, and a lot of it, I'll tell you, man, I've known some people over the years. A guy comes to my mind, a guy named Mark, who I used to see at the coffee house in Rhode Island all the time. The guy loved documentaries. He would sit there and he'd tell me about, you know, Man on the Wire or all these wonderful documentaries. He'd go into great detail. And this guy always had ideas for movies. And I kept asking him, well, when are you going to make your movie? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, you can get a pretty, and this guy wasn't poverty stricken or anything. I'm like, hey, you can get a pretty affordable camera and just start making one of your ideas. And the guy's excuse for years was that he didn't want to do something unless he could do it perfectly. And it's like, hey man, there's no perfect movie. I mean, very few movies are perfect. Maybe, you know, Godfather or something like that. But I mean, even the best movies, there's something wrong. And it just felt like an excuse with this guy. And that's just one example. There's many people I've known, and I'm sure you have as well, that have some idea, some concept that they're always talking about, they're always telling their friends and family about, but they never do anything about it. And after a while, you or me will get sick of hearing that type of stuff.
It's
and
not
so,
what you say, it's what you do. It's your actions. Actions speak louder than words. Like the old saying goes, if it costs people money to talk, they keep their mouth shut because they end up to millions of dollars. And the rule is, don't talk about it, be about it. Do it.
yeah.
Take action. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, you know, somebody can say no or you get rejected, then you pick yourself back up and do it again. Keep on
Perfect.
doing it.
Yeah, you got it.
Mike, now let me ask you, okay, you were fortunate to meet these, you mentioned about these different movies, Sybil Shepherd and some of these other great stars that you work with. Tell me that all the, you know, what those movies were about, and also who motivated and inspired you as far as in acting and everything. Is there anybody that you feel has really motivated and inspired you?
Yeah, I can tell you about some people. Well, about the movies, the Sybil Shepherd one, Hard Luck, that came about because at the time, Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations up in New England had a tax incentive that was really gaining some popularity. One of the first states to have a tax incentive for film and TV, thanks to Steve and Carol at the Rhode Island Film Office. And they Mario Van Peebles came in at kind of a interesting time of year, like October, November, December of 2005. He was putting this movie together with Wesley Snipes. It was kind of a reunion of New Jack City of Snipes and Mario. And originally it was supposed to be Sharon Stone, and my character would have been the younger brother of Sharon Stone, but Sharon dropped out and Sybil took over. And basically Sybil Shepherd in this movie plays a serial killer, and they needed someone to play her son. And I had 4 auditions for this movie through Annie Mulhall of Let's Do It Casting in Rhode Island. And the movie had actually started filming before they made the final decision of who was going to play Eugene, the son of Sybil Shepherd's character, Cass. And Mario told me on the set after we shot a scene of me and Sybil together, where I actually have a bedroom scene with Sybil Shepherd, Johnny, except she's rocking me to bed as her son. So unless people are really kinky, you know, it's more of a comedic scene. But basically, Mario told me that Sybil had chosen me to play her son because Mario couldn't decide between me and another actor who was much bigger than me physically. So he let Sybil make the choice, and she chose me. So I always feel good about that. What inspired me, you know, there's a guy named Barry Primus. You might have seen this guy. He was in Boxcar Bertha with Barbara Hershey, one of Martin Scorsese's, I think Scorsese's second film. He was on the show Cagney and Lacey. He played Lacey's boyfriend who had an alcohol issue. He was in a movie called Righteous Kill. So Barry was an acting teacher up at Main Media Workshops, where I was going as an actor in residence for about 10 years. And one particular summer, I basically, through a turn of events, got Barry's class gratis, you know, from the university, which was acting techniques for directors. And in this class, Barry really put us through the ringer. And it's like he was teaching us in a good way. He was teaching us how to act, how to direct, how to work with actors, all this stuff. And it was, I mean, this guy, I'm not sure how old he was at his time, but I think he might have been in his 70s. But he was wearing us out. You know, everybody in this class who's several decades younger than him. He's taken us to town every single day, and that was a big inspiration. Once I get out of that class, I started teaching acting myself because I felt like I had this wealth of information that I collected in my brain, and I wanted to share it with other people. And that's what started me teaching classes in Providence. And to this day, I use a lot of Barry's intensity, if not his exact teachings, but my own variation on stuff, but his intensity, his professionalism, and his passion, most importantly.
That's great. So that means that you're like killing two birds with one stone. You're learning great techniques of acting and getting roles, and then you're also ended up teaching concepts that you received from your acting training and becoming an acting teacher. That's fantastic. I applaud that. That's really great.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
That's really good. What kind of let me ask you, what kind of actors and what kind of movies do you prefer, and what kind of roles? Do you get into like dramatic roles? You get into science fiction or comedy or drama or western or science fiction or horror movies? What do you or do you like them all, or is there certain ones that you?
As far as me as an actor, I have this young lady. She's my business of acting coach, and she tells me I have to go. She described them as hillbilly roles. She said I play a really good hillbilly, and I took a little offense to that. But I said, how about rural? Can we call my specialty rural characters? So I play redneck, scary guys. The movie that I co-wrote titled The Manor, which Lionsgate distributed, and that's up on YouTube and it's on Amazon Prime and all that. But basically, The Manor, I play Ole Baton, who's a redneck, and my brothers are played by the pro wrestler Mike Bennett and Sully Erna, who's the lead singer of Godsmack. So I can play rednecks pretty good, but I'll tell you, Johnny, I'd really love to be in a comedy. I feel like I have comedic chops that haven't been fully explored on a big time film. So I really like to do that at some point.
You never know. You never know. Like Tom Hanks said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get, and hopefully something sweet.
That's right.
Remember Forrest Gump?
Yep.
Right. Do you have any favorite movies exactly in the past or present that you love?
Yeah, I liked Highlander a lot, the original Highlander. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but the sword fighting, Christopher Lambert, and who's the guy that played the Kurgan, Clancy Brown. That's a great movie. That's probably my favorite all-time movie. I mean, I love the Rocky series. I mean, even Rocky V, I'll watch that. Last year they re-released all the Rocky movies on the big screen in Florida, so I went to see all of them in a week. That was great. I saw the new Top Gun movie 3 times already, and I saw it twice, and then I went the third time to see it. I don't know if you have D-Box out there, Johnny, but basically D-Box is when you sit in a seat, and the seat kind of rocks and gyrates in time with the movie.
Yeah. That sounds blazing hot. I like that.
Yeah. So it's fun. So I mean, that new Top Gun movie I like quite a bit. As far as TV stuff, I like Cobra Kai series. I've been a big pro wrestling fan most of my life as well. So anything, wrestling oriented, I'm usually watching some variation of that as well.
Did you ever meet some of these actors like Sylvester Stallone or Tom Cruise or even Tom Hanks? Did you ever meet any of those?
Nah, probably. I mean, among the bigger names I've met are probably been, on the set. Either I was in a supporting role or a extra role. I mean, some of the people I've met, Kevin Nash, who's a former WWF champion, he was in the Magic Mike movies. I had a scene with him in The Manor. Steve Carell, I did some extra work on Dan in Real Life that was filmed in Rhode Island, and Steve Carell walked by me, and I said, "Thank you for coming to Rhode Island." And he said, "Oh, thank you." He was very sincere. Jason Alexander and I had a few laughs. The guy that played Costanza on Seinfeld.
Great.
Yeah. He and Richard Gere did a movie in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which was where my parents were both born. And he was a real nice guy. Jason Alexander was a real cool guy. We talked for a couple of minutes. I liked him a lot. Trying to think. I mean, Elizabeth Shue, You know, man, when I saw her, Johnny, she was I don't know how old she was at the time, maybe in her late 30s or 40s, but I mean, she was so gorgeous, you know, and it's just like she looked like the prettiest college girl. But this is Elizabeth Shue, and she was just very attractive and really just I was kind of I was starstruck by her and Meryl Streep at the same time. So I mean, they were great.
She gave you, and she had a shoe up on you.
Yeah, I mean, she was just, and Elizabeth Shue was the reason why I got that little scene in Hope Springs, because she started ad-libbing, which they needed someone to kind of play off of, and that became me. So I mean, I'm very thankful for that. Trying to think of who else. I did a little thing on the show. It was an ESPN show with John Turturro, The Bronx is Burning, which was about the New York Yankees in the late 70s. And Turturro was playing Billy Martin, the manager of the Yankees, and he was also like directing this episode. And at one point, he wasn't happy with the way that I was walking, you know, because I was an extra. Well, he didn't know, and it wasn't his problem, but I wear a size 14 shoe, and the biggest shoes they had that day was size 11. So I'm trying to walk the best I can, and Turturro's, you know, he's like very quietly kind of pointing at me and directing me with like one finger, and I guess I did it okay because we finally got the take that he wanted. But that was an interesting situation. He seemed like a pretty cool guy, though. It was just kind of, you know, because I've watched Turturro most of my life, and to have Turturro kind of pointing at me, you know,
became known as a pointer, right?
Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting. You know, at that time, you know, from like 2004 to 2018 or so, there was a lot of stuff going on up in New England, you know, as far as films. I mean, there was a series called Brotherhood that I did a bunch. You know, I actually was a stunt double one day. And the director, I was playing a corpse, which is kind of tough because you can't breathe. And me and my fellow corpse were wrapped up into carpets, and we weren't allowed to breathe. Now, the other guy was really a professional stuntman, and I wasn't. I was just kind of brought in because I was the right size of the guy that was supposed to be dead. Now, I think the director made a mistake in that he had the other guy get pulled. We're in the back of a van, and one of the lead stars on the show, Jason Isaacs, is supposed to pull out our bodies in these, you know, rolled up carpets and drop us down by the river. You know, I mean, Chris Farley should have been there, right? So, but they kept dragging the other guy first, but I was the one that had the harder time breathing because I'm so big that they could see my belly breathing, and I'm supposed to be dead. So the director kept saying, fat boy, stop breathing. Fat boy, you're breathing again. And I'm like, why is this guy calling me fat boy? He's calling me fat boy for about an hour. And I finally, and we weren't getting the take. I mean, because I kept breathing, you know, just something I've learned to do for a while. So finally, I just said to the director, hey, you know, it might help me calm down a little bit if you stop calling me fat boy. And he goes, oh, sorry, mate, that's the name of the character. So I was playing the body double for Fat Boy and didn't even know it. So
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any interesting humorous experiences in your acting, or even in any of your, you know, also you're producing or directing any of your other, you know, things that you do? You know, I know you do. You wear many hats. I know you produce, you direct, you do screenwriting, you do a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, I run a film festival, Avalonia Film Festival. We just had the offshoot Avalonia photography competition. So I do a bunch of stuff. I do screenwriting. I mean, you know, there's always a lesson to be learned. I mean, you know, one thing that I do this podcast myself now called And Action, and me and my co-host Tommy DiNucci had to really revisit some tough times because the movie we worked on together, The Banner, didn't turn out exactly how I thought it should, because I was like the writer on this thing, you know. And I remember that we had this was a horror film that had like a really ghastly demon in the movie, and the vision for this ghastly demon was great, but when I got to the set, I basically saw Darth Maul in a bathrobe, and I'm like, what happened to our demon? And the basic answer is, well, you know, the stuff that we were doing before would have been too expensive. We're doing this. And I'm like, I'm looking at this, and the actor who played him was a great guy. I knew the guy, and I knew that it's one of those things, Johnny, where you know people are trying their best with a low budget, but when you see something that doesn't match up with your imagination when you were writing the thing, it kind of feels like your heart's getting ripped out of your chest and stomped on the ground, and you're supposed to smile about it. So I mean, I'll go to that one.
Interesting. Smile though your heart may be breaking. Smile anyway.
Yeah.
Anything that stands out? Any stories in anything that you've done that stand out as a happy memory, whether it be you know, as an actor or a producer or a director or a screenwriter? Yeah,
you know, it's just one of the interesting things is when I was doing that Hard Luck movie, to go back to that one. That Wesley Snipes movie, there was a moment when the physical, you know, like stunt coordinator took me aside and was like helping me to kind of stretch and prepare some fight scene stuff for the upcoming fight scene with Snipes and Mario Van Peebles. And I just remember a very clear moment, Johnny, of feeling like I feel really good about where I'm at right now. You know, and I think that there was just a moment, it could have been even 5 or 10 seconds of just feeling not a euphoria, but just a real comfort. Like I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be in life. And, you know, I think like to keep on doing stuff like I'm doing, it's always a search for that feeling again, you know, like trying to get to that same point.
I see. Get to that happy role. How do you get into your roles now? Have you ever had a time where you tried your best to, you know, you have to memorize the lines and get into your acting, and then have you ever had a time where you tried your darnest and nothing seemed to work out? So like Murphy's Law says if anything go wrong in Canada, it will. And if you did, how did you overcome it? And how are you able to get into your roles successfully as an actor?
That's a great question. You know, for me, I find that memorization is probably the hardest part of acting for me personally. In just the last year, my friend Kim Kaling introduced me to this cold read app. It's like this, you know, app on your phone. You pay $90 a year, and it helps you memorize your lines because, like, you can read your lines into the phone. It's basically like having a friend read lines with you at any time you want. You know, it's really a good thing, which I wish I had that 10 or 15 years ago. I remember, you know, for years I was a dinner theater actor in something called Murder on Us Dinner Theater. And I did this group for years, and I got along with everybody except for one particular actress who she and I just didn't like each other. We had gone to college with each other and never saw eye to eye. But we were put in a scene together. I was playing Tiny Tim in the Christmas Carol show, and she was playing my mother. And basically the scene begins with me. I'm supposed to start saying stuff, and I just froze. Like for some reason, I don't know why, but I didn't say anything. So the poor girl had to say, "Are you going to say it?" You know, and then she kind of woke me up. So I mean, that's kind of the thing with acting, especially live theater acting. If you drop your line, hopefully one of your scene partners will give you the kick in the butt, metaphorically or not, to get back on track.
I see. Well, some people, what they do is act like nothing happened at all, and they just go right on. That's what some people do.
Yeah, and that's true. But I think because she and I had this personal disregard for each other, you know, she wasn't looking out for me too much, just enough to get us through the scene, and that was that, you know.
And what about your plays? Play productions and everything versus movie productions and television productions, which you find the most exciting and interesting and stand out for you?
Well, you know, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think they both have advantages and disadvantages. I think the advantage of theater is just the immediate rush of the live audience, and there's no net, so to speak. It's one take and that's it. If you freeze, if you drop a line, if you do great, it's all very visible, and there's nothing that can kind of match that. The film or TV stuff, especially the bigger budget you get, the more hurry up and wait. You know, everybody rushes through makeup and costume, and then you sit around for a couple of hours, you know, waiting to be filmed, and before you know it, your scene is over. But on the upside of film and TV and anything recorded, it's there forever. You know, if you do a film roll or a TV roll, you can always watch it, you can analyze it, you can discuss it. For theater, although people, you know, you could videotape theater as well as, or use a phone to videotape a theater show, but it's different, because if you're projecting to an audience, you're going to act much larger than if you're playing into a camera. There's a cliche from, not a cliche, but a lesson from Michael Caine in his film acting video, where he says that acting for the theater is using the scalpel, and acting for the camera is using a laser. You know, and that's a good thing. It makes sense.
Theater, you've got to memorize everything cold. If one thing goes out of place, it messes the whole production up, of course.
Now you got that right. Yeah, it really does.
Hey, can you tell me, describe any theatrical plays that you did that stand out and you remember that were happy times? Really?
Yeah, it's a good question too. Years ago, I did something called Lulu and Me. A friend of mine, Lenny Schwartz, and once again in Rhode Island, he did this play. It was really pretty multifaceted, but it was kind of ahead of its time, because it was about you know, a teenage guy who's infatuated with this girl named Lulu. She's dating the school quarterback, and he's infatuated with her anyway. And then I think at some point Lulu becomes depressed, and you know, the main character has to deal with that. And the character that I played was the main character's father. And in real life, I think the guy was just like 5 years younger than me, but probably half my size. And we both had blonde hair, so we kind of looked like a father and son. And I just remember, like, the rehearsals for that piece really felt kind of off. Like, the lead actor felt a little out there. But once we got in front of the crowd, he was great. So, I mean, I don't know. It was just one of those weird things where, like, you think something's going to be bad, but it's great. And just, you know, you never know with this stuff, how it's going to turn out.
Better to be surprised and disappointed, that's for sure.
Yeah, totally.
You never know. You've won many awards now. I know that. You've had 21 credits now in your acting. I think you've had 49 awards, various awards. Tell me all about the different awards that you've won. Are they film festivals, or short films, or long films, or what? Tell me, give me an idea, a rundown of the different awards that you have. Those awards, which I'm sure you have a lot to be proud of.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and if people want to see more, they can go to MikeMessier.com. There's a subheading for awards. But basically, my old public access TV show, The Mike Messier Show, won Best Series in Rhode Island 1 year. 7 or 8 years later, I won Best Editing with me and my friend Tim Labonte. We won an editing award for the same show. My original short film trilogy, the Wrestling with Sanity short film trilogy, won 3 awards, and that's going back to the days before Film Freeway and stuff like that. Back in the days when you actually had to burn a DVD and send it in the mail, you know what I mean? Right. So that was fun. The Disregard the Vampire that I mentioned earlier has won 11 awards. Oh. 3 of those, like from the Shauna Shea Memorial Film Festival, were because of the actual doc, and then other awards for that piece were for the movie poster and the promotional photo, and the teaser, the trailer for that have all won awards. Something I did called The Impeccable that I wrote and directed has won acting. I'm pretty proud of this one. It's won acting awards for both of the lead actresses, Ashley Shea and Nadia Zakarian. Between the two of them, they've won 3 awards for their acting. This festival out of Canada has given me like 5 or 6 awards for various projects called the Alternative Film Festival. They've always been very supportive of me, which feels good. There's a film festival in New Jersey. The Nassau Film Festival has given me 3 awards over the years, which I'm really thankful for short films. So You're the Guy, Thanksgiving, and another one. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. But basically, is what I've discovered, Johnny, is sometimes like certain festivals just like you more than other ones do. You know what I mean? So there's certain festivals that after several years of entering festivals, and you know, it costs money to enter these film festivals, so you have to kind of pick and choose. But there just seems to be certain festivals that like my artistic, works more than others. So after a while, you know, those are the ones that I tend to enter. You know, and I've won some screenplay awards as well for Fighter Play Basketball. I have a new script called Also Ran, which is a prison story, and I'm sending it out to that went out to more festivals as well. So
So you
always
get
doing something.
I guess when you get great exposure on those film festivals, besides you make money on the winning, right?
You know, sometimes you don't. I mean, sometimes you do win monetary stuff or a prize package. I mean, I think when Fighter Play Basketball won that New England prize, I think from Rhode Island International Film Festival, I got a pass for the film festival, and I got a final draft, screenwriting program, the most recent version, and right now, I'm actually at the Vero Beach Film Festival. I'm in an Airbnb this week, but I'm here in Vero Beach, Florida, which is about 3 hours south of where I live in Jacksonville normally. And I have a 1-minute movie in this thing. I have a 1-minute movie called The Hospital Bed that they accepted into the festival, and they gave me a week. They gave me like 2 festival passes, and there's been a lot of free food, which I've taken advantage of, and there's been like these after parties and. I definitely got to say that Vero Beach, if you ever get down here, Johnny, is the friendliest town.
It is
like more friendlier than any other place I've ever been, to be honest with you. So it's
Vero
good.
Beach, Florida. Okay, that's great. You have now you did a talk show. Messier, it's called Doctrine Talk Show, right?
Messier Mantra. Yep, Messier Mantra.
What I meant to say, Messier Mantra Talk Show. Tell me all about that talk show. Describe what it was about, the kind of guests that you had on, what kind of show it was.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. That was another thing, believe it or not, that kind of spawned in a really roundabout way from the Disregard the Vampire shoot. Basically, I had this kind of like, high concept idea that I was going to do this like behind the scenes thing of the Disregard the Vampire, and long story short, it kind of didn't happen. So I had the public access studio booked. I had my friend Scorpio booked to be a guest on what I thought was going to be this, Disregard the Vampire series. And because it all got kind of scrapped, there was a big snowstorm. I had to make a big change, and basically it was a huge punt. It was like, what can you do with just you and one guest? And the easiest answer is a talk show. And unbelievably, the gentleman at the time, I believe his name was Jeff Fountain, really nice guy. He put together a logo for me within minutes that I used for the rest of the series. He put together an opening credit. At the time, his assistant was Cody Piexoto, and basically this was out of the public access TV station in Seekonk, Mass. And I had a really nice set, a simple set, but a nice set. About a year later, the cameras got upgraded to high-def cameras. The show always looked great, but basically it was just me interviewing people, kind of like what you're doing with me here now. Some of the more high-profile guests, I guess I would say, Chris Sparling is a gentleman that wrote a movie titled Buried that Ryan Reynolds starred in.
Is that Chris Farley? Did you say Chris Farley?
No, Chris Sparling.
Sparling, not Farley. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been, even if I could have gotten Farley on the show, that would have been a miracle. But no, Sparling. He wrote. He did a lot of good stuff, but Buried is kind of like his first big thing. So he's actually a Rhode Island guy too. So he was on the show twice. My friends Tommy DiNucci, who's a film director, David Gears, a film producer, they were on the show. I had a burlesque dancer, Corrine Southern, came on the show and talked about that. I had Jimmy Birchfield, who's a fight promoter like boxing and MMA. He was on the show. And I had a holistic healer, who came on several episodes of the show, and she was always a great guest. I think I did about 200 episodes, and
That's great. That's really
yeah,
something. I like that. I think that's interesting. What would be a typical day now as a talk show host? What would you say a typical day is, and what are your more memorable guests that that spring out to you? Anybody, also anybody, any guests that you didn't care for that much, you made the best of it. But,
well, I'll give you it's kind of a bittersweet memory. A guy that I had known for about 15 years, he was, without getting too political, my friend Chris Young was really kind of what you would call a rebel rouser. He was always running for political office in the state of Rhode Island, as a third party or a fourth or fifth party, like a guy who was just there to kind of upset the system. And so I invited, I had always seen Chris around, him and his wife. He had a young daughter. And basically, he wanted to come on my show. And I figured he just wanted to come on and talk about Rhode Island politics and, bucking the system and all that stuff.
Right.
But his agenda was to discuss probably one of the most serious topics you can discuss, which is abortion. And Chris was a very devout Christian. He was very anti-abortion. He had so much information on that topic that I never knew about. So he basically comes into the studio and he's got 6 giant posters of a fetus in the womb, kind of like with a thumbs up or something. And I guess this is a famous photograph that people use to illustrate that, a fetus has like recognizable facial features at a very, young age, so to speak. So Chris comes in with like these 6 giant posters of fetuses. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do here? But, I just let him do it. I just said, okay. He's holding one during the talk, and then he's got 5 or 6 around. And then, Chris's daughter is kind of, she was a little kid at the time. She's running around the set. Her mom's trying to control her. And Chris was such a talker, man. I mean, he would steamroll over me, but he was so passionate on this topic. And even someone who, would be a pro-life person would have to take his, thoughts seriously because he was pretty informed. Unfortunately, a couple of years after that, Chris, sad story, but Chris basically went to a political hearing in Providence. He stated his mind about something. He was with his wife and daughter. They left the political hearing. They got in the car, and Chris was really agitated and very angry about the whole thing. And he's basically had a heart attack behind the wheel, I think is the story.
That's tragic.
And it ended up, he ended up dying. Luckily, his wife and daughter were not hurt.
I see.
But it's just unbelievable that you could be interviewing somebody one day, and then a year and a half later they've passed away. And
so in other words, you're here today, gone tomorrow. Every day above the earth is a blessing. You could be here today and gone tomorrow. You never know.
That's right.
That's why you enjoy your life as much as you can. Live each day as if it was your last. You never know what's going to come about. Go for your dreams and take your vacations. And you can say you did it your way, as full life as possible, and no regrets. After all, we know there's no do-overs, and we know that there's no encores once it's over. It's final.
Well said.
But so you do. What's the typical? Now everybody has a different policy. Like for me, now I try to stay away from religion and politics on my show. Like my favorite performer Elvis used to say. When they asked him about Vietnam protesting, and he said, "Dear, I stay away from those kind of social comments and everything. I'm strictly an entertainer. I don't get involved in that." And that's how I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I guess it sounds like you were stuck with the guest already, even if you were. Not probably preferring to have such a type of person on there.
Well, it was interesting because Chris had come on to my old Mike Messier show before, and I guess there's one thing that I do believe in, which is freedom of speech. Obviously you can't yell into the middle of the street fire, what I mean, if there's not a fire. But I do believe in freedom of speech, and Chris's opinions, quite frankly, were different than mine, but the guy was so passionate about what he was saying, I had to listen to him, and I wanted his opinion to be heard, because I feel like he was talking about stuff like this lady, Margaret Singer, who I had never heard of, but apparently she had promoted all these kind of horrible ideas, and that was tied into the history of abortion and stuff. And these things that didn't occur to me had occurred to him. And sometimes I feel like, okay, maybe this topic doesn't mean that much to me, but if it means that much to this other person, who am I to censor it, for lack of a better term? And granted, like yourself, I prefer to have, you know, actresses and models and you know, humorous people on my show, but every once in a while a guy wants to come in with 6 giant posters of fetuses. Well, it's like, okay, here's a change, you know, let's do it.
I see. I got you. Now you called it, you used the word mantra on it.
Yes.
Does that mean, you think that means like a new concept or something, somebody's concept or idea?
Well, yeah, I kind of like the idea thing. It's basically like a mantra would be a personal expression. And I asked every guest if they had a mantra, which is mean like their own catchphrase or their own like little words of wisdom, you know. So, you know, my own personal mantra would be never surrender, you know, but like you could say, you know, Michael Jordan might be just do it, you know, Nike, just do it. Or, you know, like the idea was, did the guests have a catchphrase or something that they lived by? And I would usually ask that towards the end of the show. And that just kind of tied it together.
What would be a typical day now as a talk show host doing your public access show? What would be?
Yeah, okay. Basically, a lot of days it would be like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. You know, it didn't have to be, but it seemed to be Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and sometimes Fridays were the best days to tape. It was about a 45-minute drive from my home to the studio. I typically would bring a change of clothes because I wanted to kind of keep my clothes fresh, you know what I mean? And drive up to the studio, depending on if it was, you know, inclement weather, because New England has a lot of bad weather for many months, or if it was, you know, if it was inclement weather, you had to give more time for the driving, basically. But basically, I would get to the show. I'd try to be there before the guests. Usually I would be. Sometimes the guests would surprise everybody and be super early. A lot of the guests were coming from, you know, Boston or Massachusetts or even Connecticut. So sometimes the guests, you know, didn't know how long it would take them to get there exactly. So sometimes they would be early. But basically, there was like a little green room. The guys at the studio, Jeff, Cody, and Kevin Vindinha, were always very kind to the guests. And then if the guest was nervous, I try to just be friendly and just try to calm them down as best as I can. You know, basically give them the overview and, you know, don't look directly in the camera, look right at me type of thing. You know, some guests wanted to play towards the camera, but that doesn't really look good. You know, you just want to, the host and the guests just want to look at each other, and the cameras will do their job. And provide water. Like that was kind of one of my running jokes, was like I always have a bottle of water for me and the guests, and I would always insist on tearing off the labels off the water. Usually they were Aquafina, and I would basically say like, hey, when Aquafina starts underwriting the show, then we'll put their label on the air. But until that point, these are going to be unlabeled water bottles. And then basically do the show. And, you know, the biggest rule of that type of thing on public access is, you know, we don't stop. You know, like you're trying not to add more editing time than necessary. So basically it's like a one-take deal. And I think in the whole history of the 200 episodes, only one guest kind of froze up in the middle of what they were saying and said, hey, can we stop and start over again? You know, and I think Jeff was there at the time, the station manager at the time, and he wasn't too happy about that. So after that, I made a point to tell the guests, you don't stop. You know, if you get frozen, if you have a mental lapse or something, just kind of smile and giggle, and I'll help you the best I can. And that's what we did.
So public access, was there anybody in the studio watching, or was it, you know, in public access, it just basically you have your camera, you have your guest, you have your background, and then play to the audience out at home?
Yeah, there was no studio audience, so to speak. I mean, the station manager and, you know, Cody, Jeff, Kevin, one or two or three of them would be there at any given time. Sometimes they had other, you know, assistants in the studio, but for the most part, there was no studio audience. And so basically, I started putting that show. It was on the Seacon TV9 thing, and then I started uploading them to Vimeo. And then when I took my YouTube channel more seriously about 2 years ago, I said, "Man, I've got all these Messier mantras. Why aren't I putting them on YouTube?" So I started, putting all the episodes up on YouTube. During those opening months or opening weeks of the virus, so to speak, when everything was kind of shut down. I had a lot of time to spend on the computer. And so I really worked hard on the Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel to try and get that improved. And the Messier mantra was a big part of that because the shows had already been taped. And you know what I mean? I'm like, man, I'm just sitting on a lot of content here that's not really reaching an audience,
You may as well, you also put them up on YouTube. That's what you did.
Yeah.
You had a show I thought was entertaining where you were interviewing yourself. I thought that was very humorous and comical and fun and entertaining. Tell me about that.
Well, that was an interesting one. That was a guest did not show up. A guest, he was supposed to be there, and he said he had car trouble. And the guy had an interesting story. He basically, I believe the guest was a gentleman who claimed to be the unrecognized, unofficial son of Bob Dylan. Like he basically, his story was that he was the love child of Bob Dylan. And to be honest, he probably was, because if you're near this guy, he feels like he's Bob Dylan's son. He looks like him, and he has an interesting aura to him. But basically, Dylan won't take a blood test. So I really wanted this guy to be on my show, and he was booked. And then I get to the studio, and he get there. He said he had car trouble. I'm kind of, at that point, I had committed to the show. And the guy at the studio, Cody PX Soto, was such a good guy. He wouldn't hold it against me if we didn't do a show that day. But I said, you know what? I've had this idea for a while, Cody. I want to interview myself. And Cody hopped into it right with me. So that 17-minute interview, the Messier mantra with Messier, it's basically just me riffing off myself. And the idea of it, it's kind of like there's the Mike Messier movie maker, and then the critic, Mike Messier mantra host. And the duality of me kind of beating myself up both ways, I guess. But people seem to enjoy that one.
That was entertaining. It's like a double personality. One is criticizing the other, and you're both the same person, but two different people within the same person.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what we've all been through, right? I mean,
do it. How you were able to accomplish, I don't know, but I think it was. I was blazing hot. I thought it was really great. It really got my attention.
Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You had many guests then and everything, so you have no regrets. It sounds like, and then you end up putting everything up on YouTube. And the average length of the show was how long was it? About 35 minutes to an hour at least.
Yeah, typically we would do either a 30-minute show or a 60-minute show. That was the idea for every episode. Like, let's either make it just so it plays better on the TV station. It should be either close to 30 as we can get it, or close to 60. And then what I did a lot of times, Johnny, is I would do a 30-minute episode with somebody, and then if they were up for it, and if we wanted to, if we had time in the studio, we'd do another episode right afterwards. And sometimes I'd tell the guest that might happen in advance, and say, hey, if you can bring an extra shirt or something, that would be great, an extra top, just to mix it up a little bit.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I think we did one 90-minute episode, but for the most part, it was either 30 or 60.
I see. Well, that's great. Sounds like it's very rewarding. You had great experience, and you met all kinds of people in your life. Yeah,
I should mention a gentleman named Billy V was on my show talking about his battles with cancer. He had cancer, and he was fighting it, and he was doing quite well when he was on my show. And he was a return guest, because I had him on the show before he was diagnosed with cancer. And unfortunately, Billy passed away a couple of years later as well.
Oh.
And so, I mean, that episode just kind of, it stands as a tribute to him, as I see it. And it's tough. It's tough sometimes when you live long enough to see some of your friends pass away like that. But the upside, if there is one, is that you've got it captured on video, and it feels good to watch those videos, and you see your friend that's passed on, but you can watch them in retrospect. It sometimes feels good.
Oh yeah, I've had some good friends that have passed on. I mean, I just had recently a real great friend who was the former owner of the first karaoke bar in America, named after Shirley Temple Dibbles. Um, he just passed on. He was I was able to get, fortunately, to get the last, what would turn out to be the last interview with him. His name was Sal Ferraro. I'm going to be going. My producer and I are going to be going to a memorial next week, next Saturday. We're going to go out there to Pasadena and pay our respects. He lived a long life. He lived 91 years. And I used to go to the Dibble reunions and karaoke all the time. It was a wonderful place. And I have a lot of videos on my entertainment website too, from the club. And there's never going to be a place like that again. There's never going to be. What he did was phenomenal. I mean, he used to color computerized photos. They started off with cassettes, and eventually they had 8 tracks, and they had CDs and then DVDs. And they had he had all kinds of birthday parties, and he hosted, New Year's parties, and he had all kinds of celebrities. Anyway, if you ever want to see it sometime, go to on JohnnyBlaze.com and also my YouTube channel, The Amazing British Johnny Blaze Show. He's in episode 9, Sal Ferraro.
Nice. I was watching one of your episodes today with Patty Rothberg, I believe.
Oh, you did? Oh, really?
Yeah, actually, I have one of her CDs. I had one of her music CDs, so I definitely know who she is. I think I could be wrong, but I'm just going by memory. The CD was titled like Between the 1 and the 9. I could be wrong on something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, she was very interesting. She was interesting. Yeah, she was one of my episodes. I've had different people on my show. I've had a ventriloquist. I've had a magician. I've had producers and directors and writers and singers, and I've had comedians. I've had all kinds of people on. Like I say, you're my 40th episode, and like I say, it's an honor and privilege to have you on, Mike.
Well, it's great to be here, and thanks again. Being number 40 feels good. This is 40, so to speak.
That's correct. Yeah, no, I was impressed with your background. Like I say, I'm very selective, and I don't pick just anybody, but it takes a certain kind. It has to be. I have to feel it's the right match for me to get on there, to get somebody on there.
Well, I'm interested in watching your documentary, Johnny. That looks like a really cool doc that I think I.
Oh, you did about my documentary movie? You did, huh?
Yeah, I did, and I watched the trailer, and I was gonna try to watch it before tonight, but I think I will watch it shortly in the near future once this film festival's over. But yeah, I saw it. It's available on Amazon Prime.
Okay, yeah, it's called Gone But Not Forgotten, the original Johnny Blaze story. Former Gong Show winner, which I am, and Elvis the person, which I am, strives to host his own late night talk show. My co-star played Mr. Belding, the principal, Saved by the Bell. Dennis Haskett's in there. True Don Blue, who's host of the Gong Show at the time, is in there also, along with Joey Carbone, musical conductor of the Gong Show. So I'm sure you're going to find it very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that. That's going to be great.
Take a look, have a blazing hot fun time on that. And of course, a nice positive 5-star review. If you could give it to me after you watch it on Amazon. If you're on Amazon already, that'd be nice. That'd be cool. Yeah, great. So you can tell me about some of the other things. So you've done acting, you're producing, you're directing, you're screenwriting. Talk to me about those different things that you've done. How you've been able to be so successful in some of the things that you're producing and directing and screenwriting and movie making.
Well, it's a good question, and it's interesting. You use the word successful. I appreciate that compliment. Sometimes, like probably a lot of artistic people, we're always our own worst critic, and one of the measuring sticks sometimes is finances, and I don't feel like I've done as good a work as I'm capable of because I haven't had the financial structure to back up some of my ideas. So, I mean, I'm still scrapping and fighting to get Fight or Play Basketball a distance from Avalon up and running. But I did kind of want to circle back to a question you asked earlier about, do these film festivals pay financially if you win? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Usually they don't, to be honest with you. You might get an award or a laurel or something like that, or the accolade. But what I've learned, Johnny, even in the last 2 years, I've tried to change my perspective that I'm not trying to chase as many accolades or accomplishments, or I worked with this guy, or this movie got made, or whatever. I'm trying to enjoy the experiences of whatever I'm doing more. And for instance, this film festival, and you know, 2 months ago, I went to a Fort Myers Beach film festival, and just to kind of think like, hey, just going to this festival as having that filmmaker, you know, tag around your neck, the lanyard, so to speak, and meeting other filmmakers and going to these, you know, networking parties and watching other people's films, and they're all struggling too, and they're all trying to make their movies happen, and just trying to enjoy the experiences rather than the results, so to speak. You know what I mean?
What you're saying is, of course, everybody wants to be, you know, make money and survive. It's a tough dog-eat-dog world, but you will, especially in, you know, entertainment and show business, but you truly love what you're doing. So you feel that doing something that you love is very important. And,
oh yeah.
You don't force yourself to do it. It's something that you either have or you don't. It's within you to do it. And you just give it your all, it sounds like. You have a lot of feeling, a lot of passion, and you have had and continue to have, like Messier, a very exciting, you know, entertaining and inspiring and wonderful life and career in entertainment, that's for sure.
Well, thanks, Johnny. I appreciate that. And coming from you, that means a lot, you know, and even last summer, Johnny, we're still in the middle of this worldwide situation, and you know, this A Distance from Avalon thing had been dragging on, and I said, you know what? I always tell other people, you know, friends of mine that have written a script, but they don't have the money to make the movie. I always say, hey, you should film a proof of concept, right? So I always give that advice to everybody else, and I finally said, man, I should take that upon myself. So I took the Distance from Avalon story, and I basically extracted a monologue for the Jean Lacroix Distance character, and I grew my hair, and I had a friend of mine help me memorize the monologue, my friend Kim Kaling. We did it over Zoom. And then one day I drove from Jacksonville, Florida to Lake Dora, Florida, which I had never planned to go to, but for circumstances, I got down there and I saw this beautiful lake. And I said, man, it was about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I'm like, I have to wait till magic hour, which is like the sunset hour. You know, like it was maybe 7 to 8 o'clock that night, because this is the summer in Florida. But I started doing the monologue that I had been working on for a couple of weeks over and over and over again. I filmed myself, and I just had my camera on my phone. You know, I just had my phone camera, and I filmed the thing about 40 times until finally, you know, the sun started settling. And I filmed myself doing this monologue, and I had a friend of mine, Anthony Sorrentino, edit it, and another friend, Tony Caramadre, do a soundtrack to it. And I did the credits myself. Anthony put them in there for me. And then that little piece that's about 4.5 minutes long that I filmed myself basically for free has won like 2 awards now, you know, and it's kind of reinvigorated the Avalon. So now I have a short piece that represents one of the characters, and I never intended to play that character, Jean Lacroix Distance, but because the other people kind of came and went, I'm like, I'm going to do it myself.
Great. So you get a satisfaction of being independent, do it yourself, and winning awards. That's phenomenal. That's blazing hot. I think that's wonderful. It really is. Getting back to your talk show now, I'm just curious, how did you go about getting your guests on that public access talk show?
Well, you know,
yeah,
you know, I had been in New England for so long that you know, maybe just I wore it down. I wore New England down. I was there so long, Johnny, because after a while people just knew me. You know what I mean? And so I would often like if I did a show, you know, once I started doing the first show, I would share them on Facebook. And at the time, you know, Facebook was pretty big. So this group called Hollywood East Actors Group, which was basically a Facebook group that my friend Erica Derrickson started, and it was a lot of people would share their videos and stuff. But I think what hooked it for me is that once people started seeing their friends and colleagues from the New England film area on the show, then other people want to be on the show. So eventually people started reaching out to me. And I mean, I remember having like, and then somehow I started getting like, you know, Miss Connecticut, you know, Savannah Giamarco was on the show a couple of times. And then one of her, I guess her pageant rivals contacted me and said, "Hey, I want to be on the show." Once a pageant girl's on the show, the other pageant girls want to do better, right? So then that helped, and then some guests, for instance, the Jimmy Birchfield, who's the legendary boxing promoter up there in New England. I reached out to him a couple of times, and finally they did it, and Jimmy loved it once he was there. But that was pretty much, and the Chris Sparling, the guy that wrote the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried, he and I are both, screenwriters in Rhode Island, and a lot of screenwriters spend time in coffee houses writing scripts because it's more fun than staying at home to write a script. So I would see Chris around the coffee house circuit, and I just kept inviting him, and then he did it a couple of times. And so a lot of times it was like that. Either I'd reach out to people or people would reach out to me. And I think besides the one situation I described earlier where the guest didn't show up, it always worked out pretty well.
Well, your network is what you're doing back and whether it be in person over coffee or on the Facebook, or people see you and one person likes it and then they reach out and say, yeah, I'd like to do that. So it could become a snowball. I think that's wonderful. I think it's great. Yeah, it's always good to have many options, not just rely upon one thing, put all your eggs in one basket. That's for sure. If people want to find out, if they want to buy your books, where are the books? Are they on Amazon? Tell me how people can find those books if they want to possibly consider buying the books that you have.
Yeah, they're on Amazon. Yeah, A Distance from Avalon, hardcover, paperback, Kindle. It's all on Amazon. Fight or Play Basketball, same thing. I even have it in the Kindle Vella version. Fight or Play Basketball. So if people want to read one segment at a time. I actually have 6 titles on there now. I have a pro wrestling trivia thing that's exclusively on the Kindle Vella. Someone may all get my books and other platforms, but right now I like Amazon. It's very empowering to self-publish on Amazon, so I'm sticking with that. If people go to MikeMessier.com and just scroll down to the bottom, I have all my links to all the books, all my social media, the YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, Mike Messier, MESSIER.com. Scroll to the bottom and all my links are right there.
Do you have any advice for budding people who want to make an entertainment, whether it be anything, producing, directing, writing, screenwriting? Maybe they want to make it comedy or dancing or singing, or maybe they're in a band. I mean, whatever, magic or ventriloquism, whatever they want to do. Any advice if people want to make it?
Yeah, I mean, for more details that I can give you right now, of course, I have that book, the Art and War of Directing, but it's also for actors. I have some stuff for actors. I think the biggest, off the top of my head, it's if people have a block about getting involved, sometimes they do because they think they want to get involved. They talk about it, but they don't. You have to give yourself a break, and you have to say that you're worthy of being involved, and that whatever voice you have, whether it's as a writer, a comedian, an actor, a filmmaker, your voice deserves to be heard. So the first thing you have to do is recognize that. Now, the second thing you can possibly do is, as I'm kind of a Facebook guy, but I'm sure that there's other social media apps. Whatever city you're in, say like for me, Jacksonville, if you put Jacksonville Film Group into a Facebook search, you'll probably find something, and if Facebook doesn't work, try Meetup, or if, like, for instance, Vero Beach, Florida has their own film festival. LA has tons of festivals and improv groups and stuff. So probably the best thing to do is start meeting other people that are already doing what you want to do, and make that personal connection. But the other thing that's so great now is if you've got a phone with a camera on it, you have a portal to the world. You can make YouTube videos. I'm not a TikTok guy, but you can do TikTok. I mean, there's a woman on TikTok that I watch a lot whenever I need a laugh, because she does like these 1-minute videos that are hilarious, right? So I mean, she's getting a following from 1-minute comedic videos that she's filming for TikTok, and they're hilarious. And I'm like, this lady's gonna be on Saturday Night Live at some point, So I mean, there really is no excuse to not do stuff. If even if you don't want to associate with other people, start doing film reviews or TV show reviews on YouTube, and see what happens.
I got you. How are you able to handle and overcome rejection? There's a lot of rejection in life in general, but especially in entertainment, there seems to be a tremendous amount of it. How are you able to overcome it? And you know, sure, not things didn't always go smoothly for you. You probably had some times that does.
No, a lot of times they don't. I mean, and for instance, I mean, you know, the 49 awards for films, but you know, in entertainment that I've won, think about how many rejections I've got. You know what I mean? And for instance, in my email, you know, on any given day, I might get 2 or 3 notifications from Film Freeway, and you know, say there's 10 notifications. Film Freeway is a platform to enter film contests, right? So they tell you, they send you emails if you got accepted or not accepted, if you won an award or if you didn't win anything. And you know, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 11 times or whatever the number, those are rejections. And the best thing to do, Johnny, is I just click and erase, because it's, you know, it's like the guy selling encyclopedias in the 1950s. You know, if you go to 20 houses and 19 people slam the door in your face, you go to the 20th house. You know, numbers game, whatever you want to call it, but you do have to kind of build up a what do you call it? A
resistance.
Yeah, and you have to kind of arm yourself, because you have to realize, like, hey, art is subjective, you know, and everyone's going to have their opinions. I mean, I run a film festival and a photography festival, so a lot of times I have, you know, that you know, if you want to call it power, or that option. I can give this one an award, or I can give that one an award. A lot of times it's a tough decision, but eventually you have to pick one or the other, because I don't want to do a contest where everybody gets a prize. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe in that. So at some point, you know, once I started running a film festival myself, I realized how tough it is sometimes to, well, that helped me learn that if you don't win a particular contest, or if you're not accepted into a particular film festival or whatever it is, or for an actor, if you don't get a particular role, it's usually not an indication that you're not good enough, or if you're not worthy enough or whatever. It's just not your turn. And I think a lot of people kind of forget that. Like, yes, you're great, you're wonderful, you're awesome, but so is these other 20 people, these other, you know what I mean?
Well, I think what you're saying is, if a door closes, another door could open. For example, when I auditioned for America's Got Talent, I spent 5.5 hours there at Pasadena Convention Center. I gave it my all. The lady said, she says, if you get to the next, we can't let you use your music. I had music backup, a CD. If you get in the next round, you could use it. I had to do it a cappella of my song. But, you know, I never heard from him again. I was disappointed. My entertainment web host was asking about it. I was thinking about you. But, you know, that's not the end of the world, so they didn't want me. But maybe they did give me a favor, because my producer and I, you know, when it was the pandemic, we were going to film a video inside, you know, outside, and do our film, you know, actually inside a place, a friend's place. But because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do it. Now, a friend of mine said the shows are all going on Zoom. I never heard of Zoom before. It was Skype, but not Zoom. And we ended up doing that. And we're having a great time. We're really doing it. So. And
that's awesome. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's you know, you never know what's going to happen. Right. I mean, you know, like I said earlier, Johnny, the Disregard the Vampire is a great example for me, because I was trying to make this narrative, you know, vampire film, and instead of that, I ended up with a documentary that's won 11 awards. I ended up with a Messier mantra show from an interesting turn of events. I rewrote the thing, you know, as the aforementioned A Distance from Avalon, and then I shot The Seduction of Distance. So from one failed vampire project where the lead actor dropped out, well, now I'm the lead actor, you know.
Great. What was the documentary about, by the way? What was that about?
Well, it was about the process of us trying to make this narrative vampire film, and it basically, you know, falling apart, but us meaning me and the rest of the crew and the cast, the remaining cast, and our replacement actor who was Scorpio at the time, people kind of rallying around the, hey kids, let's put on a show, despite the fact that our scheduled lead actor was no longer a part of it. And we had a very finite shooting schedule of 6 days to shoot, and we were getting troubles with the weather. Like I said, the biggest thing was the lead actor dropping out. But of course, there's always other issues, audio and so forth. So the basic kind of gist of this 40-minute documentary that people can watch on YouTube is never surrender, you know. And even though we were kind of fighting against the tide and, you know, swimming or drowning or somewhere in between, I was always inspired and amazed that people kept showing up every day. And these were not paid positions either. I mean, this was all a volunteer show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really something. There are people volunteering. They're getting their experience so that way. That's great.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you know, some people invested in this movie. There was people that put, you know, I think $4,000 or $5,000 from outside forces came to help make this project. And I had never had people giving me that much money before, you know, that weren't family or something like that. So I felt an obligation, like, just because the lead actor's not here doesn't mean I'm not off the hook for making a movie. So although the movie got, you know, adapted, let's say, or morphed into a documentary, the reality is when people watch this documentary, typically what happens is there's enough footage from the narrative intertwined in the documentary that people start to see a narrative vampire in their mind's eye. So they're kind of watching two movies at once. They're watching the documentary, and then they're watching this secondary movie that everybody has a different vision of that's kind of emanating in their own subconscious. And I feel that the reality is the documentary is better than what the narrative would have been.
Interesting. Anyway, Mike, let me ask you something. If you had to do anything over again in your life and your career, would you do anything differently?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I mean, wow, that's a loaded one. I mean, I think there's so many things. You know, this is almost like a huge butterfly effect, Johnny. But at one point, there was actually 2 points in my life where I maybe could have moved to Los Angeles, and that was probably, you know, basically 2 years out of college. You know, and maybe I had the window of time then, and then, you know, basically in a car accident where I got a settlement. You know, I got hit by a drunk driver, and using that settlement money, my basic thought was I'll either move to Los Angeles or I'll make a low budget movie. And I made the low budget movie Blood Sugar Sedace. But, you know, sometimes I do wish I had moved to LA. I've been there a few times. My sister used to live in Santa Monica. Every time I went to LA, you know, I met Brooke Shields and Ricky Schroeder and Andrew Dice Clay in LA. You know, so I always had fun in Los Angeles, but I never lived there. But maybe that's the regret.
I see. Any present projects now that you're working on, Mike? Do you have any current present projects?
Yeah, the next thing for me is I just reached out to an actress today. I'm going to film a follow-up to the Jean Lacroix Distance monologue, The Seduction of Distance, that I played myself. So this is going to be a female character of heartbreak, and it's the Many Keys monologue. So I had this big audition thing on Breakdown Express, Actors Access. I think about 40 women sent in audition tapes.
Great.
It took, yeah, so I think I've chosen one. It's kind of like my first pick. So we're supposed to have a conference call on Tuesday to try to organize the filming for this thing.
Fantastic. Excuse me. Do you have any future projects now? You haven't done it. They're dream projects that you really want to do in the future.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the Fighter Play Basketball. I mean, who I initially saw in my mind's eye to play the female lead, the single mom Janet, was Kerry Washington from Scandal. You know, I mean, I feel like she would kill this role. But you know, I recently just watched Halle Berry. She directed a movie called Bruised, and she played a UFC fighter. Halle Berry did, you know, and I said, man, maybe I should contact Halle Berry for this Fighter Play Basketball. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I feel like the character, and it's a great coming of age story and powerful characters. So I think either one of those two ladies would be great for that. A Distance from Avalon, when the Dying and the Dead reunite. I plan on writing sequels for that. Other scripts, you know, that I've worked on for years, you know, with some false starts, like Chris and the Coffee Girl, the Wrestling with Sanity script, American Luchador is a really good script I wrote. The thing that's troubling to me, I mean, you know, and I'm sure other people can relate to this, is I have more ideas on paper than probably life left to make them. You know what I mean? So, I mean, at this point, I'd really be happy if I got one or two of these big things made on a real professional level, and I'm still fighting to make that happen as best I can.
Well, you have a lot of things going on in your life. A lot of great positive things to look forward to there, Mike.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah. Okay, now, I know you mentioned it before. Let's mention it again for our audience. If people want to find out more about you, on social media, tell me all the different links that you, all about them, and how people can find out, everything about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I'll show, I'll take off my phone number here, but I'll show my business card if I can do that right. But it's basically MikeMessier.com is my website, and people can just if they go to MikeMessier.com and scroll to the bottom, you'll see the links. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel is the name of my YouTube channel. So it's literally titled Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. That is the name of the channel, with the Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. That the whole thing is my channel. So that's got a lot of my stuff, MikeMessier.com, Mikey Messier on Instagram, and Twitter. I have a new Twitter account for my acting. It says like Mike Messier, actor, director. Facebook, I'm on there as Mikey Messier, and I've got a Linktree page, for whatever that's worth. If people do Linktree, you can push all the buttons. If you go to Amazon and put Mike Messier book or Mike Messier author, you should come to my author page, and I think that's about it.
What about your IMDb page? You have an IMDb?
Oh yeah, yep. I have an IMDb Pro page, and I am the first Mike Messier on there. So if people go to IMDb or IMDb Pro and just put Mike Messier, that's my professional acting name, M-I-K-E. My birth name is Michael, but I go by Mike professionally. Okay. So if people put Mike Messier, I'm the first Mike Messier in there, and yeah.
Well, Mike, I must say that time has gone by fast. You have been, and a blazing hot, amazing guest, inspirational, entertaining, and a lot of fun, and informative. And so I'm really glad and happy that I've had you on as a guest, Mike Messier.
Well, Johnny, I appreciate your patience and your understanding, and you and Bill, both of you, appreciate that. And maybe someday we'll get to meet in person or collaborate again, or maybe I'll interview you. We'll see.
You never know, Mike. one never knows, Mike. Anyway, so as we wrap up the show, ladies and gentlemen, I want to, like I said, thanking you for being such a great guest, and also always remember, ladies and gentlemen, always keep a smile on your face and a song in your heart. And until next time, happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be a guest on an entertainment talk show, please send us an email at amazingoriginalJBshow@gmail.com. And remember, all of our guests receive a complimentary DVD of their appearance on the show. Every episode gets at least 3,000 views on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Amazing Original Johnny Blaze Show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Amazing Original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night. God bless. Thank you.